Alright, so you're going to build a basic calculator. Well, it ain't basic, but we take it from a template here without all the fancy numbers, and we probably skip one function. So we could add 9 plus 1 should be 10. We could subtract minus 3, and we can multiply, and we could divide. Right, so we could also get add our point figures. Plus 3 is equal to 10.5. We can add our zeros, so we say 200 plus 3 is equal to 203. We can go back, so let's say we add 5 to that, and we want to go back. You just go back and say we choose 8 instead, and we add that together, and we can clear a selection. So we clear the 3. Ooh, clear everything there. Let's try that again. 2 plus 3. Well, that clears everything, right? So C clears everything, but we can just clear one item. So we clear the 3. And then we clear the plus, and then we say minus 1. Clear last entry, right? I CE. So, yeah, our calculator could do a lot. And it's pure PHP, and we did not use any databases for this, or no JavaScript to make it special. So let's just see how we do that. Let's get into it now. Also, you're not just entering 2 numbers, right? So we could create a whole list of numbers, and we could get the output. 2 plus 3 is 5, 6 plus 3 is 9, plus 1 should be 10, right? So we could add a whole list of numbers and we get the output. So we're gonna go up to 20 now. That's 11. That should be 6. And we need 4 more to make out 20, right? So we can do a whole list of things. Alright, so we created our template, and now we are going to make some work to that template. So you're going to say my calculator. You're also going to give it a heading. Right, so we should see how that looks. Alright, so let's check it out. Right, so we have that there, right? So based on our template, what we actually going to do is we now need to add in numbers, and the best way to do that for now would be a table. So we're going to create a table. I'm just going to test it out first. So we're going to say button test, just to make sure it will look properly. Alright, so yeah, so that's what we need. So we have our numbers, and then we'll have a whole list of numbers. So let's continue with that. Instead, we're going to put an input here. And I believe the first thing is 9. Alright, so let's see how that looks. Yeah. So that's what we want. So let's keep going. 9, 8, 7. Is that correct? Or 7, 9, 8. 7, 9, 8. So we have that wrong. We're just going to change the order. 7, 9, 8. Great. And we're going to do this for the rest. 7, 9, 8. 6, 5, 4. confusing myself. 654. Idiot. 4, 5, 6. Alright. And the next one should be 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Alright, so we halfway there with our calculator. We have our number pad. 1, 4, 7, 2, 5, 8, 3, 6, 9. 7, 8, 9. That's a song. Alright. And now we have we need to add one more row for these extra columns and then one below. Actually, so let's do this here. 1, 2. Let's add our fourth row now. So that is divide, multiply, subtract, and add. Divide, multiply, x, subtract. We don't have adders yet because we need to add a new row, and add. So we're going to add a new row. This row is going to be plus and minus. So we say plus, minus. We say 0, then we say point, and then we say equal. Most important one. So how are we doing? Not bad. Alright, so at the top we have some additional buttons. So we also have, I think I did something wrong here. Multiply, minus, right. So the first one, divide, is actually, we have additional row. We say CEC, backspace, and divide. So let's add those. CE, C, back, and divide. And then this one is multiply. This one is subtract. And this one is add. And this one is just the way it is. Alright, so that should be better. Great. So we have CEC, back, divide, multiply, minus, plus, equal is last. Then we have the plus and minus, 0, point, and then equal. Alright. Alright, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna display row. So we're gonna do that now. So our display row is gonna be an input. Could be any table of type text, and then we're gonna have this is our, what do you call it, a history or the calculations field. Stuff. I'm gonna give this a padding of 0 or 3 and margin of 0. So that is where I would put things like 2 plus 3 and like that's the calculations we're currently looking at, right? So yeah, that's good. That's pretty good. I just want to know. Oh. So we could put a border around our calculator. Since we made it so far, we're gonna put a border around our calculator. Our official styling. What is our official styling? A border. A border. A solid border with whatever color that is, and a border radius of 3. That's as much styling as you'll ever get. Right. I don't think the pattern should have been that wide. Let's change the width. It should probably be display inline. We do that. So display inline block might only allow it to expand. Yeah, that's much better. So it doesn't take up the whole page. Great. So this is our calculator. We are almost finished. It only took us 3 minutes. Alright, so what we're gonna do next is we're gonna submit our form. So let's do that. So let's put everything within a form. Within a form block or within a form element. We're going to give it post, method post, and then we're going to capture the post as it comes in. So we are going to say if server request method equal to post, we want to do something. We're going to echo posted. Alright, great. So let's reload our page and see what's going on here. Line 5. Error. Great. So now we should, as we click the buttons, we should see that values are being posted. Great. Now we want to determine what we're going to get when we post it. So in order to do that, we have the values already, but we want to define how to put it. We wanna know exactly what's being posted. So we're going to give each of the inputs a name. So if we wanted to, we could take action based on the name. So this is going to take a while. Probably could skip this step. We'll do something important. Come back. I still be writing name. Multiply. Name is equal to 4. Name is equal to 5. Name is equal to 6. Name is equal to minus. And we are still going. Name is equal to 1. Name is equal to 2. Name is equal to 3. Few missing. Oh, we have one more to do. Name is equal to add or plus or something like that. Name is equal to plus minus. Name is equal to 0. Name is equal to point. Name is equal to equal. Alright, this is great. And guess what we're going to do now? We want to know if what we send is we want to know if it's a number or not, right? So that's how we know if we get numbers. So we're going to test it. We're going to say if post, I guess if we have post values, right? And then for each of the posts that we send, we want to say is if it is numeric, you want to echo it. We can echo the key or the value, either way. Right? So check this out. 5, 6, 3, 2, 1, 4. But we're not getting C, we won't get back because none of these are numeric, right? So right now we could get all the numeric values, which is great. And the next thing to do would be to calculate them. Alright, so let's format our stuff a bit differently now. So we're gonna get the correct entity to display. So for divide, we want to show actual divide, and we need to change this to button so that we could change the value that's being displayed. Right, so this is the actual HTML entity. Everything else should remain the same. It's still a type of submit. It's still a type of submit, and the name is divide, and the value could be slash, but you actually want to display the divide. Same thing for back, we want an arrow, so we want a left arrow for back. So I think we're going to do the same thing. The value should remain the same, but we want to display something different. So the name is still back, the value is still back, but what we're displaying is an actual arrow, and plus and minus. So we're going to do that for plus and minus as well. We want the actual value for plus and minus, but we want to keep how it looks or how it submits. So we are doing that now. Right, so the value remains the same. So the value should be plus minus. The name remains the same, and it should look differently. Great. So we are almost there. Alright, so the current value of our calculations is 0. So in our form, we're just going to say the value is equal to 0. Current value. So that's 1. So that's our display, right? It shows the current value. And right now it is 0. So the next thing we want to think about is what we're doing, right? So every time we submit something, whether it's a number or what do you call it, an action, a plus or minus, a divide, we want to save that information so that we can calculate it later, or calculate it when we press the equal sign. So in order to do that, we need an array, and that array is going to capture everything we input. That array also needs to be stored. The array needs to be stored so that we can get it later. So 2 things to note, right? 2 things to note. We need to put in a new input. This one is going to be hidden. The type is hidden. The name is going to be input, and value is going to be PHP echo JSON encode input. Right? You're gonna change these open and close so we don't conflict. So that's one. So right now we have a basic input. We put in nothing in it currently, and we encoding it into our hidden field, so we always have access to it. And when we submit, we need to get back that value. So you're going to say if I set post input input. So we decoded it. So we encoded it before, and now we decoded it, right? So that overrides the value. So that's just a note. Now the question is, how do we add items to the array? Well, basically, if they are numeric, we add them, more or less, right? Well, for now, if they're numeric, we add them. So for input, we add key, or we could put value as well, but we put in key. So now we can look at the HTML, and as we add something, we should see it show up in our form. We added 5, now we added 6, we add plus, we're not getting plus, but that's fine, because right now we only added numeric stuff, right? So 9 and 8. Right, so right now we can add everything, but what we really want to do is add everything. So let's work on that. So this shows you how we're going to figure some things out, but right now we don't need it. What we actually need to say is if it's not input, should I say if the key is not input? So remember, input is what we're saving, right? As long as it's not input, we want to save it. So we don't want to save over input values. So remember, we also passing in this value. This is input, but we want to get everything else and put that in the array. So that's what we do now. So we say if it's not the input, if it's not what we saved before, we can add it in the array. So 5 plus 3, 5 plus 3, 5 plus 3, right? We say minus 2. So now we have an array of what we're actually going to do. 5 plus 3 minus 2. Great. So now what we want to do is we want to be able to display what we're actually doing. And we also want to figure out how to join numbers together. So instead of saying if you press 5 twice, we would get 2 5s, and this should actually be 55. So we're gonna work on displaying the actual information. So let's do that. All right, so we're gonna create a function that we call getInput as string. We pass in the input. And what we're basically saying is this is the output. It's empty currently. We're saying for each of the values as a value, for each of the values in the we just add it. So I think it's going to be this straightforward, and then we return the output. So that just gives us the array as string. Basically, it's kind of great in the sense that you could do other things with it. I think no, this is fine. Alright, so I'm thinking of another way to do it currently, as in you could explode it or implode it, one of those, and then just remove the commas, right? So yeah, there are better ways to do it, but this is how we did it initially. And we just get input as string and we pass in the input. So that should show us exactly so right now the input is empty. We don't want that to happen, so we want to give it a height. Let's say the height is around the same size as the text, so we put it at least 20. That should be min height. Yeah, so the minimum height is 20, so we don't want that to change, then it'll offset how you press any calculators. 2 plus 3 plus 5 See, it does 55, which is actually good. So we don't need to join the numbers together, because if you wanted to add 555, you just add it multiple times. And then what's supposed to happen is we're supposed to calculate all of this when we press equal. So that is where things get interesting. Right? So let's figure out how we're going to do that now. We need to start actually doing the calculations. And that is where everything gets interesting. Alright. But how would we know when to do the calculation though? Well, that's obvious. When we press the equal sign. So what we need to do here is if key is equal to equal, if it's equal to equal, right? So if that's the case, we do something special here. Echo equal. Otherwise, we add everything to the array. So that takes equal out of the running. So we could do this plus 3 plus 2. But once you press equal, we actually do something special. So that's great. Now, let's get into the interesting part. Calculate input, user input. So this is the function that is going to calculate the user input. And this function is going to do two things. First, it's going to format the data in a way that we can easily do the calculations. And then it's actually going to do the calculations. So this first part, if you were to add a comment, is format user input. So the user sends information in an array format, right? So, well, they don't know that, but that's what's happening. So we just need to format it in a way that makes sense to us. So we're going to say for each user input as number. It doesn't have to be a number, but that's how we phrase it. And right, so this is where you have to stay with me. If it is numeric, if the number is numeric, again, I did this before, right? So it's not like I put it out from the top of my head. So I'm just going to run it through with you. Exactly what's going on. So if the number is numeric, or if it's a point, what we want to do is concatenate it to the char variable that we have. And what this is basically saying is if you have multiple numbers consecutively, so if you have 555, then what we want all those things to be one number. So 555 is considered as one number, right? Or 5.3 is considered as one number. Great. So that's what's going on there. Next, we say if it is not numeric, that means we have our action. Should we have a different right? If it's not numeric, so we have a symbol which is plus, minus, or whatever. So if it's not numeric, that means it's a symbol or something to that effect. So what we're going to do is first we're going to say if char is not empty, then we add in char to the array. So let's run it through again. Maybe I'll get a whiteboard. Alright, so if it's non-numeric, we want to add everything to char. Or well, we want to add everything to the array. So again, with my whiteboard, horrible example, we have 1, 2, 3. So we pass in this, and as we pass this, we concatenate the values. So as we pass 1, because it's numeric, we add it, 1. And then we pass 2 and we say, oh, so this is actually 2. So right now we have a number of 12. And then we pass 3 and we say, oh, this is actually 3. And we say this is not a number, which means this char variable here needs to go into the array. Because now we actually have a number. Alright? And then we continue. So 4, 5, 6. And we say, oh, look at that. This goes into our array as well, because we actually have a number. Alright, so that's how we figure it out exactly, or that's how we differentiate in between what is a single number, what is a whole number, and what is just a symbol, whether it's plus or minus or divide or subtract. Yeah, calm yourself. So after we add char to the array, we need to make it empty again, right? So that we now open for any new values that we see. At the last point here, we say array is equal to num. So right now we're on the symbol, and again we need to add the symbol. We need to add this symbol because we need to know that we're saying 1 2 3 star is equal to plus. When we actually do in the array, we say the number 1 2 3, the whole number 1 2 3 plus 456, 456, right? But we still need the plus, so we add the array. And finally, I believe if the char is not empty, and this takes care of a certain condition, we add it. So this is at the end of everything, and that's for the case. Again, if you look at our little whiteboard example, in this case we're going to stop at 6. And we're not going to have any more symbols. So we have to say, well, if at the end of everything, we seem to have something in the char variable, we just need to add it to the array. Because if, let's say, we added something else here, then this would definitely get added. But if it doesn't have a symbol, then we would miss out these last numbers. So we just need to make sure to add those last any stragglers to the array. So that is great. And what we're going to do now is we're going to var dump the array and exit. And we need to call this when we just say calculate input. User input is what? Input. Right. So let's test that. Let's test our work. So 5 plus 3 plus 2 is equal to, so 5 plus 3 plus 2, right? So that's easy. What we want to see is what we do with 5 plus 3 2 5 minus 6. So now you see we have formatted the array to show 555, this is one whole number, plus 325 minus 6. So we have our stuff working as it should. Alright, so let's begin to calculate. Now that we have our formatted array called array, we are now going to calculate the user input based on our formatted calculate, right? So let's begin that. So our current value is 0, and the current action is equal to null. The action is the symbol, whether it's plus, minus, or whatever. And we're going to say a for I is equal to 0, I less than or equal to count of the array minus 1. So we're just going to pass through the array, the formatted array we just created. So you're going to pass that and you're going to take some actions. So what are we going to do? Let's see. So the first thing we say, according to what I have, is numeric R I. Is numeric. Alright. I get confused with what I do. Great. So first we say if we add a numeric field, and then we say if action, and I'm going to explain that. And we say if action is equal to plus, then here's what we're going to do. We're going to say current is equal to current, so we add it back from the current, plus the current number, right? So that's the current new number that we're on. If we have an action, we just add it. And once we do that, we can say action is equal to null. So we're going to empty the action. And in the case where it is not numeric, if current is equal to 0, we say current is equal to, right? So if current is equal to 0, that means we have now started. Then the current value is actually the first number that we hit. But that is not the case otherwise. And finally, if it is not numeric, so remember I have an if up here, else, one second, I'm confusing myself. Alright, so if action else, so this has an else. So if it's not an action, we need to do something. So not confusing myself. All right, and again I'll run this through again. So else if current. So this, if we have an action, we take the action and we set action to null. If we don't have an action, and if the current is equal to 0, we say the first number that we meet is equal to that. Else, now a big else is in the case of numeric, and we say the action is equal to, again I'm gonna explain this, right? And then we return in the current value. Alright, so let's run it through again. So if we find a number, and within that number, if we have an action set, we add the current value to the number using the action that we have, and then we set the action to null, and the action could be plus, minus, divide. Alright, if the number is numeric but we don't have an action set, then and if current is equal to 0, if it's not equal to 0, we don't need to do anything. But if it's equal to 0, then the current value is equal to the current number that we on. And finally, if it is not numeric, this is where we set the action. So remember, action here we set it back to null. So let's run this through using the whiteboard. Alright, so 12 plus 45. So this is technically an array. So we have 12 and we have 45. So the first thing we say is if it's numeric, right? If we don't have an action set, that's fine. So currently we don't have any action set. So we say 12, if it's numeric, we have no action set. That means the current value is 12, right? Because remember the code we say, if current is equal to 0, and right now current is equal to 0, and we have no action set. So if we had an action, we'd take the action, but we don't have any action set, and also the current is equal to 0. So that means the current value is equal to the number that we on. So the next time we're gonna go, so that was here. Now we on this pass. So once you reach to plus, we're saying that, hey, this is not numeric, which means the only thing we need to do is set the action, right? So now we have an action. So the action is plus. So that's plus. And now we on 45. So the current value is not 0. And we have an action set. So what we're going to do, we're going to say if the action is plus and the action is plus, then we're going to say the current value is equal to current plus whatever number we on. So the current value is 12, and we're going to say plus, and whatever number we on is 45. So that's going to give us the calculation. And we could basically do this for all the other numbers. So regardless of what we have, if we had more plus 45 plus 3, it will work the same way. So once you reach here, current value would be 0, so the current value will become 12. Then we would have a action, so the action will become plus. Then we go to 45, and now you could see we have a current action, so it will be 12 plus 45, and the current value would be whatever 12 plus 45 is. And then we would go to this, the next action will become plus, because once we do this action and we use the action on this, we set the action to null. So now we have a new action called plus, and then we go to 3, and once we see 3 and we know that the current value is not 0 and it would not be 0, then we would say current value plus the current number, and we would get the calculation. Alright, so let's get that. We're gonna set the current value to whatever, the global current value to whatever we calculated, and that should take us where we need to go. So let's say 3 plus 2 is equal to 5 plus 5 is equal to 10 plus 1 is equal to 11 plus 8 is equal to 19 plus 1 is equal to 20. Alright, so we are halfway there. What we want to do now is gonna add the logic for the other symbols. So divide, multiply, subtract, and plus. So that is really simple. We could say if action is equal to minus, we minus it. If action is equal to multiply, we multiply it. If action is equal to divide, we divide it. So we are getting somewhere. Let's just check that out. So now we could see 10. Oh, we don't have zeros yet. So let's just do 12 divided by 2, and we should get 6 plus 3 is equal to 9 multiplied by 2 should be probably 18 minus 1 is equal to 17. Minus 1 more is equal to 16, I think. There we go. And then we're going to divide it by 2 to give us 8. Alright, so we have that working. Alright, so before 0 wasn't working, because it wasn't, I guess, being detected as a something, I'm not sure. Anyway, we change the name to 0, and that allows us to get 0 now. I think it wasn't being detected as a number, I guess. It's a 0 number. Anyway, so we should have 0 working now, so we can now have 2 or 3. So before I had it as 0, and that did not seem to be cutting it at all. So 2, 0, yeah. Alright. So I just changed it to 0, which is how I originally had it. Now resolve the issue. So now we have our zeros, and the only thing we need to do is be able to add a pointer. So in order to do that, and I believe we already have the logic for it, because when we did calculate user input, we added something for the point. So we can now do 0.5, right, plus 3, and that should give us whatever that is, right, plus 2.5 to give us, that's 25, it's supposed to be 2.5. Alright, well, let's do 25.5. Yeah, so is that correct? Okay, let's check. 20.5 plus 3 plus 25.5 is equal to 49, right? So we work in like a calculator. So literally, the only thing we need to do now is deal with the special conditions that we have. So we have CE, which means clear everything. Oh no, clear last entry. C means clear everything. Back means clear the last number. And I think that's it. We left this one out. We decided not to be a hero. So let's just add those three features. So up here, if it's equal, we do something special. But if the key, else if the key is equal to CE, which means last entry, we're going to do an array pop, and that's what's that basically going to do. It's going to remove the last entry, and that's it. So if we have the last entry 2 plus 3, and press CE, the last entry was 3, and then the last entry was plus. Let me say 2 plus 1 instead. It's equal to 3, right? And C clears everything. So if the key is equal to C, we would be clearing everything. So let's do that. So we'd set the input as empty, and we'd set the current value as 0. So that'll take care of C, which means clear everything. 5 times 100. It's equal to 500 plus 3. When we press C, we clear everything. And finally, we have back. What does back do? So back takes the last removes the last number. So we have to check to see if it's numeric. Again, that's probably a better way to do this, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, but if it's the last number, we pop it out using array pop. So if the last input was a number, we would pop it out using back. So that means 2 plus 3, right? And that would be in the case where we add a lot of 3s or a lot of 5s, and we could just remove them one by one. But if it was a number, if it was a symbol, we can't minus that. So we could minus a number, but we can't, right? So we are good to go there. I think there's one thing we need to do. So you notice that it doesn't show the total figure. So let's say we say 5 plus 3 is equal to 8, and then we add 2 more, which should give us 10. It just says 5 plus 3 plus 2. What you want to see is 10 up here as well. So let's just work on that. So to do that, when we do equal and we get the current value, what we're going to do is we're going to set the input to null, to empty, and then we're going to set the first value as the current value. So anything we calculate, we would see it in the list. So let's say we did 10 plus 3, so that would give us 13, right? And now we've seen 13 up there, and then we add 2, so we could see what we've calculated. 15 by 6 is a big number. That's not what's supposed to happen. There we go. Plus 3. I feel it might have an error, you know. Or maybe I'm not paying attention. By 8. Right. Plus 3. Great. So we could see that our value remains even after we have the last current value is added to the to our preview window, kind of. So we could keep track of all the calculations we're doing. So yeah, this is basically our calculator here. You could add as many as you want. and it will just calculate it for you. So you can consider ourselves complete. Minus 10, minus 10, minus 20. Right, so yeah, so we are officially complete. Let's clear. Thanks for watching.